beauty of data is that when you kind of put all the puzzle pieces together, it gives you a full picture. How you interpret the data, how you creatively use it is also important. I think we have a culture of somebody is in charge and everybody follows. I personally don't subscribe to that way of leadership. I grew up around boys, so I think it influenced a lot of my personality today. Simply because growing up with boys is just different. If you don't eat when they are eating, you do not eat. If you don't stand up for yourself, you'll get trampled over. One of the best ways to shine is to speak up. You should always have something to contribute, something of value to give to it. Having a mentor helps. Pick somebody who is successful not because they are seen as successful, but who is successful in terms of work ethic, in terms of ability to actually deliver. No matter what it is I do, I try and give 100% because I hate the idea that I've done something or you've met me and I haven't satisfied your expectations. You need to expand your horizon, expand your frame of reference. Look to meeting different people. Some people are late, some people, are early. You don't have to measure yourself based on, anybody else's yardstick.
Hello everyone, welcome to Stories and Journeys, where we explore the transformative power of learning, growth, and resilience. Join us as we uncover untold narratives and ignite curiosity. Joining us here today is an amazing person, someone I truly respect, someone that has, earned, a strides within the advertising and communication industry here in Nigeria. She's no other person than the amazing Elizabeth Akinyele, Lola. I like to call you Lola, actually. Well, hey, Lola. Thank you for joining us today.
My pleasure.
How are you feeling?
Good.
Great.
Rolling with the punches.
I'm super excited to have you, actually. And that's because, like we were chatting before the cameras, looking at your journey, it's something I think is inspiring, and I think that with this session, I hope that we'll be able to share that, experience of yours with our audience, in such a way that it helps in helping them, navigate the path towards success, like you are on as well. So I just want to just check in with you quickly before we go on. How's the ride been, for you? You are the director for digital transformation at Dentsu, and you guys recently just concluded a conference. How has that role, been like for you? What does it mean, to you as a digital transformation director?
So for me, I think one of the important things, especially with the role, is the fact that you keep learning. And it's something that I've tried to do for most of all of my career. And this role kind of brings everything to the forefront, because for you to be a digital transformation director, you have to kind of see what's coming in the future. You have to marry, okay, this is what's gone on in the past, this is what's going to happen in the future, where's the opportunity, where's the gap? And I think it's a role that's challenging, but it's rewarding as well.
Nice. While you were speaking, something came to mind. There are so many people out there today that are thinking about the jobs for the future. And if you think about it, some years ago, digital marketing could fall in that bucket, where people were not so sure what it was. And for people that were lucky to sort of understand what it was at the time, they are perhaps, doing what they love today. Looking at your role as the director when it comes to digital transformation, where you work, and looking at the landscape generally for communications, what do you think, would be the trends to look out for, in ensuring that digital actually drives the transformation that is required within the space?
So it's funny when people talk about digital because I actually started my career in digital.
Oh,
I started off at a digital marketing firm and I moved from that to more traditional marketing.
okay.
I've kind of come full circle
Circle.
and gone back into digital, and it's amazing to see the changes that have happened over the years. So digital before just used to be put an ad online and you know people click on it, they buy something, you move on. Digital today is a it's I don't want to say it's complex, but it's more focused. Let me put it like that. So before it was all about let's put some nice creative online and see who bites. But now you actually want to provoke people to do something. You want to make sure that they're doing it. You want to measure what's working, what's not working. And one of the beauties about digital now is that you can actually see a reaction to your messaging. You can see people doing the things that you want them to do. And if you're not seeing those things, you can kind of guess based on the data, what it is that you can do to get them to move from point A to point B. So I think in terms of future, I think digital will continue to evolve. It will continue to be more based on the return on investment. So if I'm putting in 1 naira, I want to make sure that I'm getting back 2 naira, which is what most people want to do. So future-wise, I see data being very, very important. So in terms of, learning people's behavior, learning how to get them, to do the things that you would like them to do, learning how to make their lives easier. And I think that transition we can see already happening in lots of other markets. I think we are, kind of pushing, towards that space as well. So there's a lot happening and there's a lot that's still to come.
Beautiful. Sounds like there's so much strategy, and creative thinking that goes into that. Because you're speaking about, the user behavior, buying behavior, trying to nudge or influence, target audience. Obviously, from what you said, it's no longer about just putting an ad out there. There's so much that goes into it. For you, as someone that's driving transformation when it comes to digital, how would you say, strategy and creative thinking, plays? What role would you say strategy and creative thinking plays when it comes to digital today?
I think it plays a huge role. It's probably one of the most important roles. And I think, and I want a lot of creative people to reconsider or to think again about where it is that they want to be career-wise. I think when people talk about data, everybody thinks numbers, 1s, 2s, 3s. It's not the most exciting of things. But you can be creative with data. I would like to see myself as a creative person. I am a failed creative, as I always like to say, because I did not achieve my creative dream, but I try and be creative in other ways. And data is one of the spaces where you can be very creative. You have to be strategic as well. So looking at a piece of data, so I can, for instance, the data is telling me that you like to go out every Friday. What does that have to do with my brand? How can I use that bit of data? And it's about being creative in the sense, okay, you like to go out on a Friday. XYZs would be the kind of brands that you would want to hear from. And the way that I can target you is because I know on a Friday, this is the time that you start looking for places to go. These are the things that you like to do on a Friday. And that's how you be creative with the data. So it's not just about, XYZ people or this number of people are doing this. Yes, data is data, but how you interpret the data, how you creatively use it is also important. So if you think about creative people who, for one reason or the other, maybe are not designers or copywriters or even strategists, think about how you can bring your creativity into interpreting data. And you don't have to be a fantastic mathematician. I'm not a fantastic mathematician. I mean, I'll be very honest with you. Math was not my calling in school. I was actually in the arts class. There's this thing about being in arts or science. I was actually in the arts class. You don't have to be amazing with numbers. You just have to be able to look at the numbers and kind of read them and know what that means. Nowadays, you even have different programs that will kind of summarize the data for you. So you're not looking at an Excel sheet and trying to work out, okay, this number means this. all you have is, this is the report. Okay, fine. You're telling me that 50 people go to this place in Ikoyi on a certain day. Why? Why are they doing that? How do you apply that data? And you know, nowadays it's very important for you to not just be able to read the numbers, it's to be able to creatively use them.
Beautiful, beautiful. While you were speaking, something came to mind. Double clicking on data. Would you say that the marketing space here in Nigeria is, you know, at that level, you know, where data sort of drives, you know, insights? Obviously, looking at the structure, you know, perhaps agencies work with brands, you know, who work with various departments internally, you know, and there's the first-party data that perhaps will be required, you know, to do the kind of refining to get the kind of insight you're talking about. What do you think about that space, and what would be your recommendation, you know, to ensure that we get to that level where data actually drives, you know, gives insights that drives strategy for marketing campaigns?
So you'll be surprised at the amount of data that we have access to. I think as a country, we don't know how to use the data. Before, maybe a few years back, I would say access to data. We don't record anything. We're not a culture that tends to write things down or to, you know, just memorize things in writing. We tend to be very oral. But with the, you know, advent of phones, of computers, you're able to know what people are doing. Now, in terms of how we go about it future-wise, I think there's a space for us to, okay, first-party data, this is the data that we're getting from you guys, whether it's from your phone or from your laptops. Give people the options to, you know, to pick what it is that they want to do, whether they want to give you access or they don't want to give you access, what the benefits of giving you access would be, what the downsides would be, and using that data to make people's lives, you know, better. I always give the example, and I always refer to what's happening in other markets. We tend to be not necessarily slow in catching up, but we also need to see the benefits. A lot of our people, they do things based on what is the benefit. And I'll give you an example. If you're banking in any other country in the world, they know what your spending habits are. Your bank knows what your spending habits are. This is data that they have access to because you have not necessarily subscribed to it, but because they have your record. So they know, for instance, on my birthday, I might like to treat myself, go out for a dinner, whether it's with myself or my friends. They know that, you know, every month I might buy a few shoes. I might go shopping, you know, those kind of things. They probably know when my mom's birthday is because they probably will be able to see on a certain date she, you know, buys, you know, something for her mom or for her dad, or, you know, those kind of things. There's a benefit there in the sense that they know my spending habits. They know, okay, this person is moving from university. She's done her 3 years, 4 years in university. She's probably going to start looking for a job. At that point, they start sending me loan applications. So looking to get your first house, your first apartment. I might not have been able to do those things or to even think that I needed those things. But my bank knows that, look, you've stopped uni. You will need to move in somewhere. You want to move out of your parents' house. That's a benefit. The same way, and this is a real life case study, I had somebody using my card who was not me.
Okay.
My bank actually called me to let me know that, Lola, we saw you bought a laptop a month ago, and we've seen another purchase of a laptop today. I'm like, it's definitely not me. But that's the benefit of data. The fact that they know, it's like knowing somebody. You know the things that are, you know, fall within their normal behavior patterns and things that fall out of their normal behavior patterns. That's the benefit of data. And I think, you know, once we catch up, because a lot of the telecom companies, a lot of banks actually even have access to that data. We just don't know what to do with it. So there is data, it's just not being used. And I think we need to, as, you know, should I say as an industry or as a country, decide, okay, this data is useful for this, or to create a space where there are experts or consultants that will be able to tell you that, look, you have access to so much first-party data, but you're not using it. And using it is actually going to give you the profits or the business objectives that you need. So it's really educating people on what data actually does. I don't think as a country we see any real benefits to data. Marketers, yes, we know that data is great, but a lot of people don't. And I think there's a lot of education that needs to be done.
Beautiful, beautiful. So I'll dial back a little. I want to check in with you quickly. I know you used to do search engine optimization at some point in your life. You used to work at Digivate in the UK. Mm-hmm. What was that experience like?
So it's an interesting experience, and I liken it to almost like, the Wizard of Oz. So for people who haven't seen the Wizard of Oz, at the end of it, everybody sees behind the curtain. The wizard is exposed and he's this like tiny little man. It's kind of like that, because a lot of the time you think this is how SEO works. Sometimes it's organic, sometimes it's not. But you find there are people who are actually, working the algorithms. And for me, being in that kind of situation, I was like, oh, okay. So this is how it works. I mean, it's interesting, but it's also educative in terms of the fact that people can be motivated to do different things. SEO works because people recommend, people talk. You're able to push the algorithm.
Yeah.
So as a marketer, for me, when people say, I need to be on the first page of, this search engine, you're like, it's doable. I mean, it might not get you the results you want, but if that's what you want, then yes, definitely we can do it for you. So, it's always interesting.
Nice. I mean, going back to what we're speaking about before the cameras came on, I think you said you did, you love psychology at some point, even till now, I guess. Combining that interest to what SEO was, or maybe marketing as a whole, but SEO now more specifically, do you think that had an influence in terms of how you delivered, on the job at the time, and even in terms of how your attitude towards, projects were at the time?
Definitely, because SEO is basically, I'm giving you the content that you're looking for. And I know if I know who you are, and I know the things that will sway you, then I'm able to not necessarily manipulate the algorithm, but to kind of influence it in a way. So, in my former life, when I first started working in digital, you're trying to sell a clothing brand. You know the type of people who are going to shop at this brand. I was even kind of almost the TA for this brand. You know that there's certain articles that these people are looking for. They're looking for fashion articles, celebrity articles. You're looking for things that, okay, this person wore. Can I buy something similar? And the whole idea is that, okay, yeah, I know you like Angelina Jolie's style. I have something similar to that because you cannot afford Angelina Jolie's style, but I can give you something similar. And once I start doing that, then you are also helping my algorithm, because you are, okay, this is content that I like. I'm staying on the page, I'm reading your article, I'm getting your recommendations. And the algorithm recognizes the fact that, okay, this content is great, and I'm able to push you wherever it is that I want to push you. So you have to be able to understand who it is that you're speaking to, because it's the most important thing as a marketer. If you do not understand your audience, you're not going to be able to do anything. It's like trying to, and I had a boss who always used to use this analogy. It's like trying to woo a woman. You cannot woo a woman without understanding her.
True.
You need to understand her motivations. Even just generally wooing anybody, although women, it's a question, but But if you are trying to be in a relationship with someone, you introduce yourself. They talk about themselves. You talk about yourself. You get to know each other. That's the basis of a relationship. You cannot have a one-sided relationship.
Correct.
And that works true for brands. It works true for marketers. If it is that you are a consumer, if I do not know the basic things that are motivating you, that are moving you, it's unlikely that I'll be able to, connect with you in any way. So
Beautiful.
it's very important.
Beautiful, beautiful. Do you think that sort of also sets the precedence for you, in terms of how your career, began?
Yes and no.
Okay.
So I've always been interested in people. I love watching people. I'm the kind of person who I can go out, but I'm not necessarily going out to go out. I'm going out to people watch. And it's just something that I like doing. But at the same time, I'm also creative in the sense that I even remember as a child sitting in the car and a jingle comes and I'm like, this jingle, they're missing something in this jingle. Like, there's something that I could have done better. So yes, I love, to watch people, but I also like to create. And I think it, kind of came together in a perfect mesh with marketing or advertising. So yes and no.
Interesting. So how about what's childhood like for you?
Childhood was interesting. I think I grew up around boys, so
Okay.
I think it influenced a lot of my personality today. Simply because growing up with boys is just different. If you don't eat when they are eating, you will not eat. That's just it. If you don't stand up for yourself, you'll get trampled over. And I think for a long time, because I have very few female cousins. I think I can count on one hand the female cousins that I have. I don't have any sisters. So a lot of it was me thinking that I was one of the boys. And I think that's kind of moved me throughout my life. So I don't think it was until maybe uni that people are like, oh, you can't do this, you're a girl. And it was like, nobody has ever told me this before. Even my dad never used to tell me, you can't do this because you're a girl. My mom had never told me, you can't do this, you're a girl. I think it was expected that you will do what needs to be done. You do the right thing, enter whatever field it is that interests you. But I never had those kind of gender restrictions. So I always kind of felt I was one of the boys. It's not until I started working that I started getting hints of, but you're a girl, you're not, and it was weird because I started in client service strategy. And as a strategist, people used to tell me it's very rare to find a female strategist. And I always found that odd, like, okay, do people actually mark those kind of things? I'm just a strategist. But yeah, I mean, it's interesting, those kind of things. But growing up, it's one of the things that I feel grateful for, the sense that I grew up with no real ceiling. I wasn't really told you couldn't do this because you're this. I was basically told, look, you can do as well as anybody. I was never limited. So I think for me, moving through my career, I see things and I don't think, okay, will this be right because I'm a girl, or can I do this? The guys are doing better. It's one of those things that I don't really think about. And in fact, it has to be something that's said to me or pointed out to me before I even consider it. So,
Interesting. So that has sort of shaped even your approach to life.
Definitely.
Opportunities.
I'm still somebody who will stand up if if somebody tries to trample me over. Yeah, so like I said, growing up with boys, you have to stand up for yourself. So I was always a person who, if you said something that was not right or I felt I could contribute, I always did.
Beautiful.
I would always say something. I would always push back if needed. And I think a lot of people, maybe because of the environment that we are in, maybe they felt a bit surprised. But it is what it is.
Looking at the climb where we are, that trait is not enough. The older generation would rather have you keep quiet in some cases while they are speaking, which sort of dovetailed into what we have as a country now. People, generations are blaming generations for certain issues in the country and whatnot. And from what you said, something was really remarkable about it, and it sort of seems like it came from your upbringing. Growing up with boys, you're free to be yourself, express yourself as much as possible. For people that didn't have the opportunity, people that are still going to be in a room, even if they have ideas in their head, they're not able to speak it out. They're not able to express themselves. What would be your advice to such people?
And I see it all the time with, different teams that I've worked with. And I always encourage people to be fair to a lot of people, you also have to gauge the environment that you're in. I don't think a lot of organizations encourage contribution, participation. I think we have a culture of somebody is in charge and everybody follows. I personally don't subscribe to that way of leadership. And as much as possible, I always like people to challenge me. I can never be the smartest person in the room. And I think somebody said this, but I can't remember who. If you are the smartest person in the room, then you failed as a leader. Because then why have you hired all these people? Everybody's opinion is necessary. And to be fair, I think I've also been lucky in terms of where I have worked or where I started working. Because, one of the earliest places that I worked, I was encouraged to actually speak my mind. I mean, I had that personality already, but it was nice for me to have a platform to...
environment.
Exactly. So, and those kind of organizations, I think they create that culture. And, when people leave, I also, I find it nice that they carry that culture with them. The same way that I've carried that culture with me. So no matter where I go or whichever team I'm in or I'm leading, I want everybody to contribute. Whether you have something to say or you don't, get people into the habit of contributing. In terms of advice to the people who feel a bit timid or who are afraid to speak up, I would think of two things. Think about yourself. Be selfish. Because one of the best ways to shine is to speak up. You should always have something to contribute, something of value to give to a meeting. If you are sitting in a room and all you're doing is taking notes, you're not contributing, it makes it difficult for people to see your value. Even on a personal note, I don't think anybody ever thinks of the fact that they're going to be where they are forever. You're going to be a leader, you're going to be in other positions of power. Now is the time to start being empowered. Empower yourself. It's time for you to, if it is you're somebody who wants to lead, you can start leading now. This is what I think we should do. This is how I think we should go forward. And to be fair, if your organization is not an organization that encourages that kind of behavior, I think you should also think about whether that organization is the right organization for you. And I know it's hard in situations or economies like we have now, but you have to think future-wise. There are plenty of places that would welcome your go-getter spirit, and I think it does you a disservice to hide your light under a bushel. Speak up. Just take the plunge. It might not be a long speech. It might not be a huge, but it could be an opinion. Go on, test your ideas. How do you know the things that you're thinking of? How do you know that they work? You need to contribute, get feedback, and sometimes people don't speak up because they're afraid of feedback. And I think feedback is fantastic. I'm somebody who loves feedback. So don't be afraid. Just speak up, grab the bull by the horns and just do it.
Beautiful. It's my theory, but I feel like some persons, because of what they're chasing, sometimes gets locked up in the maze of 9 to 5, right? For some persons, it's about just getting the salary and moving on to the next thing, and that sort of kills consciousness or self-awareness, you know, if you may. You know, I think that from what you're saying, you know, you come across as someone that's conscious, self-aware. You know, do you think that's a thing? And you know, for those that you've seen and you feel that they're not self-conscious or they're not conscious, you know, how does that make you feel? And are there things that, you know, you sort of think about now and you feel like what brought you to where you are today is as a result of you being self-aware or being conscious as well?
So, in terms of people who, and I think you're talking about people who are probably not even engaged in the office.
No, generally, you know, not just office, you know.
Just in life.
Yes.
I think people who are not engaged, you haven't found something to be engaged by. This is where the beauty of youth comes in. If you are a young person, and I'm one of those people that, look, your youth is for running wild. I think you should try and experience as many things as possible. There are places in Lagos that you can go kayaking. There are places in Abuja that you can go hiking. Do things that are not the norm. You know, it's not everyday party. It's not everyday, you know, let's go out and eat. Do different things. You might not have found your passion. You just might not have found the thing that makes you tingle. And it's normal. It's normal for you to go through a period where I don't know who I am. I don't know, you know, what I want to do. I don't think I realized what I wanted to do till after I graduated uni, and I'll be very honest. I knew I wanted to be in the creative space. I didn't know that would be advertising necessarily. I didn't even know how to get into advertising, you know. But that's something that I kind of fell into, and I was like, okay, I quite like this. And I didn't start off as a strategist. I started off as, you know, in account management and client service. And I fell into what I found a passion for because somebody offered me an opportunity and I didn't say no. I said, okay, this sounds interesting, let me try it. One of the best things that's ever happened to me, but you won't know until you try things. So I think you need to expand your horizons, expand your frame of reference. Look to meeting different people. You know, it's something that will happen. Some people are late bloomers. Some people, you know, are early bloomers. You don't have to measure yourself based on, you know, anybody else's yardstick. But you need to go out there. You need to experience different things. The only way for you to find what it is that's going to make you passionate is by looking. And that's the honest truth.
True. Beautiful. By looking, do you consider yourself as someone that is nature first, or are you a lover of digital? Like, are you more laid back in-house with your game, with your pad, or whatnot? You know, or you like to explore, you know, nature?
I am more introverted, and I think people think because you're introverted you're shy, but I'm not. I just like my own time. Exactly. So I have two personalities. I have the personality that's in the office, and office people, if I tell them I'm introverted, they will never believe you.
Okay.
And then I have my personal time. But at the same time, I'm somebody who loves experiences. So I'm the kind of person who will say, okay, you want to go hiking? Okay, let me try it. Let me go. I might not necessarily want to speak to like 1,000 people, but I'll try it because it's something interesting. I've never done it before, but I like to have different experiences. I might not always like them, but I've done it.
Interesting. Trying to connect that back to what you said around someone giving you an opportunity, you know, which you took at the time, you know, if you picture yourself now, like some years ago when you came out of university, you know, what would you say were those things, those, you know, ethics, you know, those principles, you know, that sort of shaped you to be that person that will be willing to give value, even if you don't know what the opportunity is going to be like, and you're able to take on those sort of opportunities. What ethics, what principles, what were your mantra, at the time?
So I think this goes back to how maybe I was raised. I'm somebody who, no matter what it is I do, I try and give 100%. So regardless of what it is I'm doing, I also want to make sure that you're getting the best of me, because I hate the idea that I've done something or you've met me and I haven't satisfied your expectations. And I think as I've grown older, it's kind of morphed into this idea of, if I'm leaving a place, I want people to feel my absence. So if I'm quitting a job, I want people to know, okay, she's left. There's nobody who can do certain things that she did, or, you will never find the same me again. It might be narcissistic, it might be, an ego trip, but for me, I always like to give my full self. And, it's funny talking about the opportunity that I took without knowing how it would play out. I remember the first job that I had when I got out of uni was digital, and I was more client, facing, client service. And, even on that job, I did things that I'd never done before. I learned a bit of coding because at a point I had to do something for a client and nobody was available. So I did it myself, and I had to learn how to do, I spent a weekend learning coding so I could, do this job. It's not something that I like to do, and I don't think it's something I ever did again, but I did it. For the opportunity that came after that, I applied for the same role in a more traditional agency. And initially I was offered the job, and then I think it got taken back. I think maybe the role was cancelled, or for whatever reason, it was taken back. But then the person who was speaking to me was like, okay, I know that this role is no longer available, but a strategy role has opened up. And I think based on your experience, you would also fit well into this opportunity. And I remember driving home in tears because the role I wanted was not available. And I was crying. I'm like, what do I know about strategy? Like, I don't really know what I'm going to do. And then I thought to myself, it's still in the company that I want. It's still in the industry that I want. It sounds kind of interesting. How bad could it be? And that's how I accepted that role. And that's the role that I was in for the majority of in fact, when they tried to pull me back to client service, I said, no. I'm a strategist. I'm a strategist. And that's how I defined myself.
Nice.
So it was just one of those things. And I told myself, look, let me face the role that they're offering me. Let me do it to the best of my capabilities. If it's not working for me, it's not working. But it ended up working for me. So it's just that whole, if you've set your mind to something, just do it. There's nothing it's not taking anything away from you from, doing a good job. Just do a good job, and that's it.
What were the early days like for you when you started, knowing fully well that it wasn't what you wanted you got? What were those early days like for you, and how did you cope in that period?
It was a swim or sink kind of situation, because where I went, I was not even given an introductory period. I think from the first week, it was kind of like, this is the work.
Hit the ground running.
You hit the ground running. And I was just like, so probably for the first month or two, I actually remember sitting in the office and being so overwhelmed. I didn't know what I was doing. I felt every time I handed in work to be reviewed, the work was subpar. And I just felt, this is not working out. This is probably not for me. But in my mind, I'm like, give it 6 months, just continue to do it. And I had no idea of any of the processes. It was very, very overwhelming. But I stuck it out, and I had a good boss. He was a great teacher, and he wasn't exactly a boss of, oh, you're doing well, but it was a boss of, you can do better, and I think you can do better. Like, I can see the potential, just give it a bit more. Like, there's something there. 6 months, I started getting into it. By the first year, I think I was making presentations to show to like global clients. I mean, I wasn't presenting to them, but I was making the presentations. And it's one of those things that, okay, a moment where you feel proud and you're like, actually, I can do this. So it's giving it time. I think a lot of the time, I see this a lot with, people who are coming up. They don't give things time. And sometimes it might feel like hard work, but sometimes the payoff is actually really, really good. So, when you give things time to percolate, as they say, you might end up, getting something even better.
Interesting. So patience, giving it time.
Giving it time, putting in the work. I think it's important to put in the work. You will not be a manager in 2 years, in 3 years. In fact, I think at this place, I probably got promoted twice, and I was there for a long time, for almost a decade. It's not because my work was not good, but just because of that was the culture. But I don't regret that experience, because I probably learned the most that I've ever learned anywhere else. And I was able to carry that experience to different places. And I found that as I left there, the rise that I had was quite rapid, because, okay, you're doing way more than what your role is. Yeah. And I think a lot of people recognize that. But because I had put in the work earlier, I had put in the work years ago. So me being in a role, it was like, I've already done this. This is easy. Let's move on to the next thing. Let's move on to the next thing. I find a lot of people, they will move jobs because it's an advancement thing. You haven't put in the work. By the time you get to a certain level, you realize that you can't actually do what's in that role. And it then becomes a challenge for you, because you've reached that stage in life where I can't drop down. And then you have to start going back to, okay, how do I fit into the role that I'm in now? But if you've already done that at the beginning, and you're young, people expect you to make mistakes. They expect to teach you. You have the opportunity to learn from a lot of people. But it's difficult for you to learn from a position of, being on the hill. So putting the work, I mean, you will still get paid. Your salary will still meet up with your colleagues' salaries. But you need to put in that work so that when you get to that role, you're able to actually do that thing.
True. Beautiful. There are certain persons that, are willing to put in the time, put in the work, but they're not cut out for the 9 to 5, structure. They want to just do something on their own. They have that push. They're restless. They want to be entrepreneurs. In that context, what would putting the time, putting in the work be to those sort of people, and what would be your recommendations to such persons?
I admire people who are able to do their own thing, who are able to work outside of a structured environment. I personally cannot, simply for the fact that my personality is more team driven. Okay. My working style is more team driven. But people who are self-starters, who are able to do their thing on their own, it's very impressive. I think for those people, it's going to be more about, it's still learning, to be honest, and it's also networking, because you don't necessarily have the opportunity to learn on the job because you are not in a structured environment. But you are able to connect with people who have similar experiences with you. And, internet has made it so open for people to connect with people who do the same things, who have the same experiences, who have lessons to teach, who are able to mentor them. And I think one of the things for entrepreneurs is you need to be able to do that. You cannot do it on your own. Even if you're a self-starter, you need to have some kind of connection, some kind of mentorship, because it saves you from making the mistakes that other people have made. It also creates an environment where you're checking in with somebody else in terms of, this is what I'm thinking. Is this right? Is this wrong? Would you have done it this way? Does this work? Give me your experience. It's something that a traditional work environment would give you. If you don't have that, then you need to create your own kind of structure. It's not as rigid, it's not as physical as a traditional work environment, but it's something that I think would help them in the long run to connect with people. Because at the end of the day, you will also be somebody's boss.
True.
And you can't be a boss without knowing what the employee is going to go through, or, going through that process. So you need to be able to, okay, this is somebody who I admire. Tell me how you've done it. And it gives you a check. It gives you a balance of the different things that would work for you.
I think that's pretty insightful. There's something that comes to mind, when you think about what work used to be like, and you sort of hinted around it when you said when you worked at the early stages. You got a team of people, you had people you could learn from, but there's some brain drain, when you look at the markets. Today, most of the best hands, are leaving, and even those that are still available are planning to leave, and that sort of creates a gap, for the younger generation of professionals, but with that current situation, right? How do you think that, these younger people, can ensure that when it comes to professionalism, they're able to uphold the standards when it comes to that, and when it also comes to ensuring that, they're giving their best at work, they also do that. Yeah, it's a fast-paced environment, but still holding on to those ethics, being a professional, what would be your recommendation to those people?
I find having a mentor helps. Now, and this is a bit tricky, because when you say mentor, I think a lot of people, success for them is very, and I don't want to make a blanket statement, but success can be very superficial. I think if you're working in a certain industry, pick somebody who is successful not because they are seen as successful, but who is successful in terms of work ethic, in terms of ability to actually deliver. And that can also be difficult, because you as a young person, you might not necessarily know what that looks like. It's about looking at things not from a superficial point of view. And I think maybe organizations also still play another role in this. Not just even organizations, but, not just agencies or different individual organizations, but maybe like a wider group, maybe like career-driven groups can help with that, because it might not even necessarily be somebody in your industry. I necessarily do not have mentors. I latched on to the idea of, okay, my boss, who I keep talking about, he is for me kind of almost like a gold standard of where I wanted to be. He is who I kind of took as, this is the person who I want to build my career on. And it's worked for me. I think doing that, maybe looking at things from that point of view of, this person who is leading my team, is he a good boss? Is he getting results? If he's not, maybe there's somebody else I can look at within the organization who is doing maybe something a bit different. And also to remember that your path is also very different from whoever it is that you're looking towards. I've branched out from being a strategist to being more focused on performance digital. My boss is not, or my ex-boss is not that way. but I still carry some of the values that I learned while working under him. And I think it's more about the values. What are the good things that you can pick out? And it's difficult for me to recommend to individuals because you also have to be able to recognize what those values are. So I think this is where, the role of organizations comes in. Who are you? How are you rewarding people? If you're rewarding somebody for being nasty, but because they're delivering results, then you're sending the wrong message because people are just going to follow that person's rule. I can step on anybody, but as long as I'm delivering, I'm going to get rewarded. If you're looking at the fact that this person is a good leader, this person's team, and those are some of the things that you have to see. If you have a team and people don't want to leave that team, that's a good leader. How are you rewarding that person? And it's from that kind of person that you can say, okay, this is a good leader, or this is a good career path, or this is a good progression. I would also advise them to maybe look outside. Like I said, it doesn't have to be somebody who works within your industry. It can be somebody who works outside of your industry. There are lots of stories out there of people who have been inspired against, adversity or whatever to achieve great things. And I think reading a lot of, those kind of autobiographies would also give you an idea of the amount of work, the ethic that goes into success, that it's not overnight. It's something that happens. And it's something that requires, should I say, lots of failure.
Correct.
You need to, see what other people are doing and to recognize the fact that, yes, everybody talks about Dangote, they talk about, all these big guys, but they didn't just become who they were yesterday. They worked for it. They worked hard for it. Whatever it is that they did it consistently, and they did it with hard work. So it's looking at those things and not looking at the fact that, okay, this person is successful. There's a reason why that person is successful.
Beautiful. For you, that boss you keep referring to, your ex-boss.
Yes.
What were those values that stuck with you?
One thing that was always important for him is it's all about the work. Doesn't care about anything else. And when I say he doesn't care about anything else, he doesn't care about office politics, who is friends with who. The work is what comes first. If this is your job, are you able to deliver what it is that you've been asked to deliver? If it is you have a brief that needs to be answered, have you done it? Have you done it diligently? If, there's some chemistry issues, okay, this person didn't like the fact that you spoke up in a meeting, he would always ask you, but your job as a strategist, did you speak in the role of a strategist? Did you question why they were doing this because the consumer would not like this? If the answer is yes, then he's like, okay, so what's the problem? It's not a case of you have to be liked by everyone. You just have to be able to do your job and to do your job well. It's not about, okay, at appraisal time, you're cozying up to everyone so you can get a good appraisal. No. Did you achieve what you had set out to achieve? And for me, that's one of the most important things that, so you can be quiet, you can, do all those things and feel like, okay, I'm not rocking the boat. But did you do your job? And that's the most important thing for me.
I'll go back to childhood for you. Did you grow up in Lagos?
I did, for the most part.
What was Lagos like for you growing up?
Lagos has always been my home. I think Lagos is ever evolving, and I love seeing the new things that come up, all the exciting experiences that are popping up. I think I was kind of not sheltered, but also my parents were not very big on me going out for parties. But like I said, I grew up with brothers. So
You guys would jump the fence.
No, not even necessarily jumping the fence, but my older brother, I'm in the middle. My older brother would always, he's going out for a party, and I'd be like, but he's going out. Why can't I go out?
True.
And it was like, okay, we don't really have that much of an argument. So I experienced Lagos as a kid. I experienced Lagos as an adult. The experiences have been very, very different. but they have been pleasant. It's not always easy, but home is home. So, yeah.
Any things that you think about now that you remember growing up about Lagos?
I always have this memory of Lagos, of being on, whether it's Third Mainland Bridge or Carter Bridge, and music, the music of Lagos. There's a certain soundtrack that I think of when I think of Lagos. So it's not me being in the car, the sun shining, being on the bridge, maybe it's even being stuck in traffic. And just that music, that soundtrack, whether it's Fela or, Lagbaja, somebody in the background playing music. And for me, that's one of the, so when I think of Lagos, that's the first thing that comes up.
What now?
It's almost the same thing, to be honest.
Oh, okay.
The music might have changed, but it's still the same thing. Traffic is
what about
still
the
there.
Community, growing up and now, same community.
Same community. So it's where the friends that I've had, probably have had them since primary school.
Nice.
We might not always meet up, but I know where everybody is, and we still talk occasionally. It's difficult for me to go anywhere in Lagos and not know somebody, or know somebody who knows somebody. So it's just Lagos is smaller than people think it is, but it's Lagos. There's no other Lagos.
Nice.
Yeah.
Beautiful. I don't know if I should talk about this, but I know last time, it was the first time we came to your office, the stand, there was this song you were singing. Do you want to talk about that?
No, I don't. No, I don't.
Why?
It depends on the context.
I mean, so looking at that and like how you grew up, like, so for me, I used to remember what markets used to look like, Balogun markets, at the time, and what the Lagos Island lifestyle used to be, at the time. So connecting that to that song.
Oh, really? Is that a memory of yours?
Connecting that to that song, I mean, what was like actual childhood like for you?
Childhood, I mean, it was a lot of fun, I would say. It was a lot of discipline. So coming back to my dad, he's a very disciplined man. He's very I'm trying to find a word. For him, what is right is right.
Stern?
Not even stern. He wasn't a stern father. But what is right is right. What's wrong is wrong. There's no gray area. So you might do something with the right intentions, but was it wrong? It was wrong. So why would you do that thing? So a lot of lessons, growing up, I have, and it's ridiculous. Every time I do something, I have my dad's voice in the back of my head. And it's just, people say, what would Jesus do? For me, it's like, well, what would my dad do? But, those are the things that I remember growing up. So, and maybe because, like I said, I was raised by boys, or with boys, I got into a lot of, scrapes. I was a child that used to climb, trees, or would test the boundaries of, my parents' kindness, this kind of thing. So I used to get into, the normal trouble that kids would get into. But, that whole growing up, it's lessons being taught. I have memories of playing around with my cousins, and I remember Lagos being quieter. So you could actually, it's not here on Adiola or Dekun.
Yeah.
When it wasn't commercial, you would actually be able to play on the roads, and you would walk across. When Park and Shop was new, you would be able to go there, and we would save our pocket money to buy sweets. I remember going to school on the mainland and walking along around Shonibare Estate. So I only have really fun memories of Lagos from my childhood. Maybe because I was a child, but it was fun, but it was a learning experience as well. So Lagos will always be Lagos.
And how was that Lagos spirit or culture shaped you professionally as well?
I think it's the be ready for anything. Anything can happen. So Um, I think when you go to different places, there is this is the way this should be, or this is the schedule. But as a Lagosian, there is no such thing as a schedule. You can plan to be at the office for 8:30 and you can leave your house at 6, but you can get there for 9 because traffic or there's a trailer or something. So it's about being ready for any and everything. So I think that's one of the things that Lagos has taught me, and it's taught me to be, like I said, I don't necessarily like to be extroverted, but I can be. I have that personality that I can fit into that role, and that's a purely Lagos thing, because you're going out and you're not speaking to people. No. So you are able to show yourself that, no, look, I'm actually in the room. So that's one of the things, Lagos has helped me with, that personality of just being able to put myself forward.
Beautiful, beautiful. And how do you see Africa, going to the future? Connecting it back to the Lagos spirit, the Nigeria spirit,
Africa.
And Africa.
Africa is a tough one, because I think there's a lot of opportunity, and that's always been the story. We have so much opportunity, so much potential, but again, it's that inability to tap into it for whatever reason, whether it is government is not well placed or people are leaving to go look for better lives. It's about tapping into that opportunity. We are not united as a continent.
Sadly.
We are not, able to tap into what makes us valuable. And I think more and more what's happening is we are selling off bits of ourselves to other countries. Unless certain things change, I think we will be stuck where we are, best case scenario, or we will, as a continent, kind of dwindle down. I look at where South Africa is now, and it's declined really rapidly. This is a place where people used to hold it up as a gold standard of Africa. Now, even, South Africans are saying Lagos is safer than South Africa. And for me, that's very, very shocking. So unless things change, I think we're going to be in big trouble.
What kind of change would you like to see?
I think a lot more unity, a lot more collaboration, because it's obvious that the problems of individual states cannot be solved by that state. We need to come together, whether it's to unionize our currency or to even have, it's difficult to even travel between African countries, which I think is ridiculous. If I want to go to, not Seychelles, to Mozambique or even to Zambia, I have to go through another country outside of Africa, it makes very limited sense. It's expensive. It's just not, it's not meshing. So I think a lot more unity, a lot more collaboration between ourselves, and I think we'll be able to work out certain problems.
Beautiful. I want to say a very big thank you to you, Ola, for your time.
My pleasure.
It's been really, really insightful and exciting, talking with you on this podcast today. Thank you so much. Feel very honored, learning from you and also getting your valuable insights as well. Thank you. I want to say a very big thank you to you.